Everybody left?
Yeah.
All right, we'll make it quick. Just wanted you to know, and it's okay, Aaron, to record this. I just learned that we're going to have a full ITV classroom in the Anderson School, room 1017, and it will be ready for the fall. So if you have any interest in any further ITV courses, and there are now several, that you wouldn't have to leave the hallowed halls of the Anderson School and all that. You can do it right there. The room is seats 60. It's a regular pit classroom, and it's, if you know 1017, it's the one that has a little room off to the side in the back, and that's going to be the control room. So, okay, let's go ahead. I'll hand out the conflict orientations exercise, and I would like you to do this and discuss it. And you can also, if you have not already done it, you can post it to the site. Has she left also? Okay. Now this is straight out of the section in the textbook of conflict orientations. And give it a go, and we can talk about it for a bit. Since most people left, we'll just quit early. Okay, I want to take a rough tally of, so to do this, there's several ways that I've done this in the past, but what I'm after is which of these 5 orientations would you tend to pick first on, if there is, if any of you can answer that. It's not the way this is phrased, but this is a separate question to you. How many of you would rely on dominance? 2 people. There's only 8 here, and 9 counting myself. How many of you would rely on collaborative, satisfying the wishes of all parties and sincerely want to find a solution? Okay, that's 3. Now you understand how complex that is? That is, you've got to find out what the other party wants, you have to talk about stuff. Dominance is a little bit easier to carry out, you just beat them up. And you're going to overwhelm the other party. How many of you would focus on, want to use as the first orientation, compromise? Okay. Now you know that compromising is splitting the difference, and it has the quality, when you do it, of leaving a conflict aftermath. And we typically get into this in budget disputes in organizations where, in fact, the president was alluding to it at the meeting when he met with our faculty. There is a finite amount of money that comes into the University of New Mexico, and there are all the departments and units that are competing for the finite amount of money. How many of you would pick avoidance as the first? Okay. Why?
Because I used to pick collaborative a lot, and it's a lot of work.
Yes?
And I just came to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't want this work. I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna avoid all of you. Yeah, it's working out.
It's working out?
I've lost some people along the way, but it's working out. I'm happy.
Now, do you mean this is?
Not there.
Do you mean this is in a work situation?
Social situations.
Social,
at
okay, so
work,
it's.
even at work, when I had a problem with like a coworker, I just feel like I'm just gonna ignore it. It will go away eventually.
Well,
Sometimes
actually,
it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
actually it doesn't, because if you avoid it, you don't address the issues. And you may not, no, it can come back and bother you at a later time, unless because of, pardon?
If it comes back,
Uh-huh.
then I put a collaborative, but that's a real last resort. I'll try to avoid it as long as possible, but
Okay.
then maybe forget about it, maybe they'll get over it, maybe I'll forget, have a bad memory.
Okay. Let's be careful here to make sure in a real situation like you're describing, to reduce the conflict, you have to get at the root cause of it. And that's why the notion of latent conflict, in my view, is so powerful. Try to find out what is really triggering the episode, and carefully, or do not fall on, oh, they just can't get along. Now, the people, we all may have difficulty describing what's really the source and the root cause of the conflict, but unless we get to that root cause, we're not going to remove it, and it's going to come back and bite you at a later time. How many of you would pick accommodative as the number one approach? Okay. So primarily, obviously tiny numbers, but dominance and collaborative come out as fairly, yes?
What if you do all of these? Because I think all of these is what I do. It just depends on the situation on which I choose to run with. But I can see myself doing all of these.
I agree, and you can think of this as a repertoire of conflict orientations from which to choose. I recommend, because of what we know about how conflict can repeat itself in an organization, this is a horrible way, I can't think of a better way to say it, avoid the avoidance orientation. Despite the fine argument you're making for yourself, it simply is not going to deal with the conflict.
It doesn't deal with it.
Pardon?
I'll admit, it doesn't deal with it.
It doesn't deal with it. No, of course not, because you're not getting at the root cause. You're dealing with yourself and your reaction to it. You're just not comfortable. You're not comfortable with that person or persons, and you just don't want to be in the interaction. Yes?
I think I rely really highly on collaborative, but with a big emphasis on dominance. Because, you know, the reason I'll try to incorporate everyone's ideas is because I don't want my ideas to be left out.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, you know, they're interdependent of each other, but.
Well, dominance means you're gonna take charge of the situation.
Well, I take charge of the group, I think, so
Yeah.
that my ideas are definitely still part of the collaboration.
Okay. Now, in looking at, every time I use this in class, I redo it. I don't know whether it changes. I don't happen to keep the sheets from one semester to another. Collaborative is at the top of my list. And I have used it in the faculty, within committees that I chaired over the years that I've been here. And it is time-consuming, and it can be extremely stressful because it goes slowly. See, with avoidance, just walk away from it. Yeah, and then it'll sneak up and catch you at a later time. But with collaborative, you're working the situation and trying to make it work and the like. I try not to use compromise unless it's a scarce resource situation. If it's scarce resources like budgets, time, allocation of classes, you know, and it's any of that sort of stuff, then likely you're going to have to split the difference because you don't have an endless pie that you can expand. I unlikely would use avoidance. And in fact, it's many years ago, I don't think I still have the t-shirt because I don't think I can wear it. I can remember coming to class after talking about conflict. I must have used the phrase, I must have said, God, I love conflict. I personally enjoy conflict. And that they gave me a red t-shirt. Somebody gave me a red, it was inside an envelope on the desk when we started class. And I opened it up and it said, God, I love conflict. And I wore it for a while. And especially when I wore it to faculty meetings. This is when I was a wee bit younger and probably a bit more of a renegade. Okay, and then I would unlikely use the accommodative approach. So in my repertoire, and though you're correct in your observation that you have all five, but if you lean toward a subset, then that's the subset you would draw from. And in my case, it's collaborative with compromise in there because it's unavoidable in many situations that I work with.